everyone. This is Ayana, and I'm here with Gab.
Hi, this is Gab, and welcome to the G&A Podcast, brought to you by Cultural Vistas and YSEALI Seeds, Loop Digital Solutions, and the U.S. Embassy in the Philippines.
So, Gab and I created this podcast because we always talk about friends doing inspiring work in their communities. We know there are many of them out there and needed a space to just talk about it. So, why not create a podcast to amplify their voices and maybe inspire more people?
Exactly. We want to be able to create a ripple effect of valuable conversations and provide a platform to connect with like minded people. And since we're both international exchange alumni at the U.S. Embassy Manila, we celebrate this community by bringing them together featuring different themes of their advocacies.
We are so excited to start this conversation. Please don't forget to subscribe to the GNA podcast. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, and Apple Music.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the Media Civics Lab Seminar
And I
Workshop
hope that you're looking forward for another learning session tonight. We're going to be talking about
I have a new friend, and at first there were very serious people.
Magandang araw and mabuhay! Chairwood Alana.
Okay, so today we'll be talking about media consumption, digital detox, and well being. Since our umbrella theme for the first season of the podcast is restoration, we'd like to ask the question, how can we use media for social good? And how can we detach from media to restore our well being? For us youth leaders, being attached to our advocacies is normal. But what about now when we spend more time consuming media content than ever before? These are the pressing questions we'd like to answer in this episode of the podcast. And fortunately, we will be joined by some special guests. Our special guests for today are my fellow alumni of the Young Southeast Asian Leaders Initiative, Sarah Torres and Marlon Nombrado, both co-founders of the Out of the Box Media Literacy Initiative. They're going to share their expertise on media and information literacy and how they took a one-year grant to a 7-year long and counting journey of promoting responsible digital citizenship and media literacy all over the Philippines. Let's welcome them both on the stage.
Hello,
Hi.
Gab. Hi,
Hello,
Aya.
Sarah and Marlon.
Hello, good evening.
Right. Hi. Thank you so much for joining us. Evening in the Philippines right now. I'm tuning in from New York, so it's around 7 a.m. um,
morning.
yes.
Morning.
Now I'm just really curious to start off. Like Gab introduced all of you guys, and I'm really excited to know more about it. Um, I'm trying to like let this go through. Try kong itaguyo to. Now I've heard about OOTD, and your organization sounds the same, but I see it's OOTD. Tell us more about. Can you please tell us more about Out of the Box and how did you come up with this acronym?
Sige, Sarah, go ahead.
Okay, ako na. Sige. So, ang simula talaga ng Out of the Box was in 2014 when Marlon and I graduated from the University of the Philippines, Diliman. We were both journalism graduates. And at the time, my thesis was on media literacy. It was evaluating the so-called special program journalism. And then one of the findings is that may kakulangan sa media literacy yung journalism or campus journos sa select schools. No? And why is that? Because of lack of resources, lack of teacher training, no? Lack of news literacy, news literacy modules or resources nga in general, no, doon sa mismong journalism subject na yon in that special program. And so, because Marlon was then the chairperson of our organization, Union of Journalists of the Philippines, and we are still very close friends. I asked him what does he think of creating a small project around media literacy, and we had a couple of brainstorming. Maybe Marlon can add to that later on. Tapos, we also invited another friend. Kaya naging tatlo kami, co-founders ng Out of the Box. And from there, tuloy-tuloy na yung programming. But Marlon was the one who thought about the name Out of the Box and how it came about to become OOTV and also the logo. So Marlon.
Yeah, actually hindi accident 'yon na OOTB and OOTD. I think baka 2014 yung time na unang nag-emerge yung acronym na yon or siguro around that time, no? But it wasn't really the intention na maging katunog siya ng OOTD. Out of the box, the intention behind it is box being the television. So the mission of the organization that we were creating at that time, again, it was just a small project that we were intending to do nung simula. Ang point is for the participants of these fora that we wanted to organize ng simula, ang point is for them to go beyond what they see on the television. No? It's to promote critical thinking. It's to look behind the scenes, what happens behind the camera. And then, kasi yun yung version ng kwento ni Sarah kasi syempre, she had that thesis, no? Kasi kanya-kanya naman kaming thesis nung undergrad. So when she came to me with this idea, yung media literacy na concept, hindi pa siya ganun kalinaw sa akin. So parang nung nagsisimula kami, really all we wanted to do was share what we learned in our programs, no? So we're both journalism graduates, so there were classes where we were taught what is media bias, what is ethics, and sabi namin baka this can be something na we can share to others because our assumption is this is not being taught in other schools. Ganon.
Yes, true. No, thank you so much, Sarah and Marlon. Well, kung nasabi ni Sarah, she invited one friend. Parang what made me think immediately was like, ano, parang, ay, ito pala yung, this is the legit networking. Na this is the type of legit networking that na hindi scam, but you're doing your networking and inviting someone to join for a greater cause. And then here comes Marlon. But I could agree, around that time media literacy was something new for everyone. Like even for me, it's such a vague, big, heavy word that I believe like your organization is one of the pioneers actually to start mentioning it, putting it on the mainstream arena, and to openly talk about it. Anything to add, Gab?
Yeah, actually, what I was thinking about was the fact that it's so perfect na, they were both from UP and then they came across with one another. I was asking them about this earlier, like, how did you guys find one another, right? Like, especially in the context of pursuing an advocacy together, because um, it's so difficult to find co-founders for startups. And you guys have been doing this for the past 7 years already, or and counting. So, like, what's the synergy, or like, where did this kind of common fuel come from? How did you guys find that kind of commonality between you? Anyone?
Ako muna sasagot.
Yeah.
Nabanggit na actually ni Sarah yung yung org namin nung undergrad, yung UJP-UP. So we came from the same organization. So we've been working together before Out of the Box came about. No? So we know each other, alam namin kung ano yung interest namin pareho. And Gab was asking about where it came from, no, the maybe the passion or the interest in media. I think we owe a lot to our former organization, yung UJP. Kasi the mission of UJP is advocacy journalism. So we were journal students, but um, we were trained to do more than reporting. No? We were exposed to a lot of different issues that media people were experiencing. For example, nung undergrad namin, ito yung katatapos lang nung Ampatuan Massacre, for example. And we've been very vocal, no, advocating for press freedom, safety of journalists. So I think um, nung pagka-grad namin, hindi naging madali for us to be removed from that experience of organizing projects for the organization. So it was just a logical thing for us to get together and do something, no, productive while pagkatapos ng aming graduation.
What about
Correct.
you, Sarah? Yeah.
Ako I think um, UJP kasi it's a student it's an activist organization for student for UP students, no. So I think that activism binds Marlon and I. And we had this, yung passion and energy na let's let's go out of the box basically. Paglabas natin ng university, 'di ba? Kaya din ang main target ng out of the box ay students and teachers eh. Not just because we feel strongly about these sectors, the youth and their educators, but also because yung mga sinabi nga ni Marlon, it was sobrang naging malaking bahagi sa amin yung pagbabahagi din ng mga natutunan namin from our course and our subjects. Yun.
Okay, yeah. Actually, what I would really want to ask, and I'm a little bit shy asking this, never pa naman kayo nag-away as co-founders? Kasi I think the biggest reason of why a lot of startups and even organizations, right, like they actually fall apart. And I'm really just a big fan of the work of OOTB, the spoof ads competitions, the different MIL, and even E was fake, where we have a lot of commonality in terms of like funding. So, never ba kayo nagka-issues on working together? And what's your like advice for us, especially since we're still looking for our advocacy partners, which you guys already did?
gusto ko yung pagka-showbiz nung tanong na.
Oh, yeah.
Kasi, obviously, we've had many fights. Marami namang mga hindi pagkakasunduan, no? Tsaka, siguro, nung simula, talaga, parang very clear naman sa amin kung ano yung gustong gawin, no? And a lot of brainstorming. It involves a lot of brainstorming, thinking together. And in these cases, syempre, merong mga cases wherein hindi nagmi-meet yung ideas namin. Pero, I think nasa na nga rin, maititrace ko pa rin yun dun sa training namin from undergrad na hindi siya para mag-lead into bad blood, no? Hindi aabot sa ganun. Tapos if ever nagkaroon ng mga hindi pagkakasunduan, I guess naayos naman lahat. Naayos naman lahat, no, Sarah?
Char.
Hindi lang namin sinasabi sa isa't isa.
Yeah. No, I think medyo similar kasi kami ni Marlon sa work ethics. So we know when it's work and we know when it's play. And when we are working together, yung trabaho namin sa out of the box, it's not for ourselves eh. So I think kapag you don't put yourself or yung parang I'm getting too much traction because this out of the box is getting traction too. We're getting interviews ganyan. If you don't put yourself sa ganong level, hindi kayo mag-fall apart as friends. Kasi syempre may mga times na Marlon has his own interview, I do have my own, and all of these are because of out of the box, no? Not because magaling kaming dalawa or magaling kami individually. So kaya din meron kaming mga misunderstandings, but we always make it a point na we have these misunderstandings because we want to do something like we want to make out of the box better, parang ganon. And so we just meet halfway most of the time. Pero hindi rin naman kami lagi nag-aaway kasi nga we've been friends for 4 years, no? Before out of the box. Yon, and we're still friends.
Parang may empathy na lang. Right, kasi I think the famous saying before, di ba, when, well, now you're with out of the box, pero when you're in your college days, university days, parang, oy, this is yung make or break ng friendship. And I'm glad that it's not the same with like with you, pioneering and putting together out of the box, and it did not make or break. But also coming from a psychological perspective, it's nice that there's actually conflict, because it challenges your mind. You don't go and do collective thinking na okay na lang, like whatever everyone thinks. That it's nice to have kumbaga yung the devil's advocate at some point, or someone to go again out of the box than the regular thinking of the group. So at the end of the day, it makes the organization better because there's a different perspective, and it's always conflicts when resolved are always an avenue for growth. And talking about let's go to the good memories na. Parang biglang na spotlight sa question ni Cap. So knowing that you're both from UP, I'll just ask you a very light one. Like, what do you miss most as a student? Food, places, your fondest memory? Because right now we're all about, going to the nostalgia road and thinking about the what we've known before prior to the pandemic, to the global health crisis. I'm just really curious about it. What do you miss most as a student? Maybe Marlon could start and then Sarah could follow.
Ang nami-miss ko siyempre yung classroom. Nakaka-miss yung classroom. Yung buong campus, the whole campus experience, no? Well, lahat naman ng estudyante, ipinagyayabang yung kanilang campus, no? So, UP has its own yabang, no, sa campus, especially pagka ganitong panahon, no, Pasko. Masarap talaga maglakad-lakad sa Oval. I think that's what I miss. Well, parehas kasi kami ni Sarah nagtuloy ng masters after naming mag-undergrad. So, medyo extended din yung stay namin sa UP in a sense. So, and we still keep connected with some of our friends and professors. So, every now and then, nakakabalik kami doon. Pero nito na nga lang nagka-pandemic din, since I don't get to physically go there. Even if I teach in UP Baguio, I don't get to meet my students. So, nakakamiss yung meron kang kakwentuhan, meron kang kainuman. yun yung nakakamiss.
Oo. Ako din yung tambay. Sa UP kasi may mga tambayan kada organization eh. So after mo ma-stress sa isang class halimbawa, or pag free time mo, pupunta ka sa tambayan, tapos makikipagtsikahan ka kung sino mang nandun. So yun, I think, kasi mas nakakadagdag talaga ng life lessons, experience, nakaka-enrich in general yung org experience sa student life. May mga chikahan, political discussion man yan, or kahit whatever life discussion na sa tambayan na nakakadagdag ng like pagtingin when you go inside the classroom. At gaya nga sabi ni Marlon, yung mga side chismes din with professors, nakakadagdag siya ng parang maturity and wisdom, no, as students. Yun. Bukod sa
Nice.
kwek-kwek and pancit canton.
I've actually visited UP Diliban din, and I guess there's a lot of culture in that campus. Actually, just a very quick idea lang din, guys. I and Ayana also came from a campus system in Mindanao. So that's Mindanao State University. We both studied in the same campus, MSU, IIT. By the way, Yan, what do you miss the most about Iligan City? And
Iligan-
MSU, IIT, yeah.
Well, siguro yung palakasan or yung the sports fest. Because I'm a very, more of a very extracurricular person. And I love how everyone showcases their talent, yung mga ganong type, aside from just being in the, four walls of the classroom. So, yun talaga yung bet ko. Siguro kung in terms of attendance, is perfect attendance ako sa mga activities for palakasan instead of classrooms.
Great. Ako, particularly, kasi university town ng Iligan. And I guess there's something really unique about university towns like Iligan, Butuan, Dumaguete, They're just unique on their own. That's what I love about Iligan City and IIT then. But actually, going back to our guests, no, um, because the focus here, we want to kind of like talk about YSEALI Seeds. And I'm sure that you guys are familiar with this funder that we are working with right now. YSEALI Seeds is actually a program of the U.S. Department of State, which has been supporting not just the organization that I'm running, which is Break the Fake, but also has been supporting a lot of different organizations, including Out of the Box. So OOTB won YSEALI Seeds in 2015, and hopefully it has allowed them to scale further the OOTB's MIL, or Media and Information Literacy efforts. So would you guys mind telling us and our audiences what was the original project all about 7 years ago or 6 years ago, that you registered under the YCD Seeds program, and how did you expand or sustain it in the next few years? Anyone could answer.
Si Sarah sasagot. Mahina kasi yung memory ko eh.
um, yung YSEALI Seeds kasi, it's our second funder. The first one was UNESCO Jakarta. At yung project doon ay school tour, basically. We thought of hopping from school to school, from university to sort of teach, no? Yung mga natutunan nga namin from college. So we had news literacy, we had the poly-econ of, or the business of media, business of advertising, I think, or criticizing, analyzing advertisements, yon. Ilan sa mga courses. So we piloted that with UNESCO funding, and then scaled that up sa YSEALI. So apart from schools, we also universities or colleges. Nagsimula na rin doon, Marlon, yung high school. High school. And also the teachers. And then we also had a competition, the spoof ads, right?
Kasi parang yung alam mo yung experience natin sa YSEALI, I think if I remember it correctly, most of the other organizations who applied in YSEALI only had one or two activities na malaki, no? Pero yung ginawa natin, well, because the money is quite big, no? First time namin humawak ng ganong kalaking pera as an organization. So, ang una talaga pumasok sa isip namin ni Sarah is to organize so many different activities, no? So, using the money, using the grant from YSEALI Seeds, we were able to reach college students, high school students, and that was also the first time we catered to teachers kasi 2016 nagsimula yung MIL subject for senior high school students. So noong 2015, doon nagsisimula yung demand for training teachers. And initially kasi puro training of students. So that's when we started thinking, this can have actually a bigger ripple effect, no? When we train the teachers, they will be training their students. And since then, napagpatuloy naman namin yung teacher trainings namin.
And also, may I just add, we were able to travel to Jakarta, the University of Indonesia. Kasi meron ding YSEALI alumni na na-meet si Marlon from way back pa. Actually, from the UNESCO workshop. And so, we connected again. We went there. We partnered with them to bring our kind of workshop and also learn from them. Ano yung media repression sa Indonesia? And what can we do together? So it was an enriching experience, and from there on, mas nakita namin yung footing namin as out of the box eh. We can do parallel workshops for teachers and students. Have a lot develop modules and primers. Yan na nga, ripple effect.
Yes. Yeah, actually I'm just, I'm looking at all of the efforts that you guys have been doing the past few years and listening to you guys right now. It's just really very inspiring. I mean, I barely see you guys both though in the interview. So I guess this is like one of the first few times that I saw you both together. So thank you for actually gracing us in this episode together. My next question is a little bit similar or like related to the previous things that Marlon brought up earlier, which is you guys coming up with a lot of projects. Because for me, also being in the media and literacy field, I kind of feel like OOTB has been really innovating a lot in the MIL space. You guys are running spoof ads competition. You've been producing modules for hashtag #IWasFake program. You also have partnerships with Facebook. So I want to know a little, well, just a little bit of idea about your thought process. How do you come up with all of these dynamic and really different, unique programs from time to time? Marlon?
Okay. Um, ang sagot do'n ay iisip ako ng magandang sagot. Hindi, kasi, for example, una, media literacy is broad, 'di ba? Ngayon na lang nitong nauso yung fake news, nadikit talaga siya sa fake news, yung media literacy, 'no? So, all media literacy projects are counter disinformation projects. But when we started, hindi pa gano'n kaingay yung fake news. So, when we were starting out, we were interested in a lot of things. That's why spoof ads was there, no? It's just about advertisement criticism and reconstruction. And then there was a time we also did a film fellowship, filmmaking and film critiquing. And in our workshops, we're not limited to news literacy alone. We were doing criticism of films and TV shows, talking about the cultural relevance of media. So I think there's a lot of space to innovate, no, if you are advocating for media literacy, because there are many different directions. But when 2016 happened, and of course, disinformation became the buzzword. Um, I think the challenge was to always reinvent and keep on coming up with a different idea, because unti-unti nang dumadami yung players sa media literacy circle. So everyone was doing resources. A lot of people are doing their trainings, and that is okay. That is good. No, we were able to partner with different organizations the past few years. But in order for us to keep our drive, no, na we sustain OOTB, we need to come up with new ideas para din maging continuously relevant yung OOTB. And also yung personal din namin na yun nga, na drive para din sa projects na ginagawa namin.
Right.
Ikaw, Sarah.
Speaking about, and Sarah could add more?
Maybe ano lang, there's no one solution naman kasi, di ba, in addressing a problem. And there's a lot of problems around media literacy. And so we always think about how can we better reach students, halimbawa. That's why we have the competitions or the teachers, no? Especially sa online, puro Zoom na lang lahat yung classes. Paano pa sila mas maenganyong magturo at mag-aral? So mga ganong like questions lang. But just to also tell you, no, Marlon is our like the research and design person. So as also at bilang teacher siya, mas marami talaga siyang creative ideas, no, that we brainstorm or we parang workshop, what we workshop after. Yan.
Speaking of creative ideas and how like the organization is continuously, innovating and doing more activities. From our research, we've learned that OOTV has just recently won a global award, you guys, for media and information literacy this year. So, can you tell us more about it? Who were, the participants? Who were you up against with? How was the selection process like?
Sarah?
Ako ba? Member kasi kami nung Global Alliance. I forgot na. GAPMIL. Global
Yes.
Alliance. Tama ba? On Media and
Yes.
Information Literacy ng UNESCO. And then, we saw this, what's it? Publicity.
Call for nomination.
Call for nominations of media literacy projects, basically. And so we thought, baka it's the right time na to show, the international scene, sort of, what are the projects we've been doing in the Philippines for the Filipino audience. So Marlon started to draft and then we workshopped it. I edited the application. Ang highlight talaga namin yung core programs, which are yung school tour, the teacher training, our resources, and even our Suri at Pili election, special election campaign. Ganyan. It's specifically for election and media literacy. And yun, I think when we just submitted it, we didn't get an update actually. At nalaman lang ni Marlon na nanalo kami because
May nag-send lang sa akin ng video recording because it was announced during the Global MIL Week, and there is this one event, online event during that week that is like a closed event. Hindi siya naka-stream sa Facebook or YouTube. I wasn't able to attend it kasi hindi ko alam na doon pala siya i-announce. Luckily, there was a friend of mine who is watching that show, and then she was taking a video of it. Tapos sinend niya sa akin na nasama yung pangalan namin. So,
yes,
it was a really, ano ba, paano ko ba i-describe yun? Hindi ako
parang
makapaniwala actually eh. Kasi parang,
pleasant surprise, ganon.
oo, kasi nga it's our first ever recognition. Never naman kaming,
Yeah.
we tried applying in other awards here, local, pero hindi kami pinapalad, no? Pero hindi rin naman din kasi yun yung parang goal namin.
Actively, right?
It wasn't really something that we are constantly looking for. So again, the motivation behind joining the call for nomination, yun nga, sa tingin namin after 7 years, we've done a pretty pretty good amount of projects na makakabuo kami ng maganda-gandang nomination to submit. And yun, it was really a great surprise.
Congratulations to the
Congratulations.
organization. Yeah, and I think just like learning about and knowing more about what you've been doing, it's really like high time for you to be out there, spread your wings. And I believe when you also put forward the organization, it also means you're looking for synergy from other organizations as well. You know, like-minded people, you attract them in terms of letting them know about what have you been doing. And well, if you, yun nga, kung hindi napalad sa local, in the local arena, then you're more beyond than that. You're acknowledged in the international scene. So like credits to you guys and everyone, that work hard for the organization. And I'm just like when you talk about school tours, sabi ko, haven't I heard about it? Sana nag-volunteer my volunteer spot ba that time. So I'm just really like super proud about from that 7 years. It's a huge milestone. And aside from that, YSEALI seed is just one part of it, but you've been there before the funding happened, because another organization was there before that, and continuously may mga funders na pumapasok, which means there's like the organization has so much to offer, and you deserve it. So props to you.
Thank
Thank you very much.
you.
So now that from all from winning the do you say MIL, right, the award?
Yes. Mm-mm.
Yeah. For both, no, anyone could answer. In your kind of work for media literacy, what is the most exciting part? So parang basically we're asking, saan kayo humuhugot ng lakas, or aside from that, what are the challenges as well? Knowing that it's not new these days, the word media literacy, but also, no, I'm already assuming that you're one of the pioneers to start talking about it. Anyone could share about that experience. And probably these days it's so challenging when we talk about media literacy, right?
Mm-mm. Sa akin, most exciting part, yung unang pumasok sa isip ko was prior to the pandemic, when we still do a lot of these face-to-face trainings, when I get to interact with fellow teachers and fellow students as well. Nakakatuwa when you actually get it from them. No? Kasi once you get the idea of media literacy, it's not so complex to explain, no? And through the activities that we were able to organize, um, every now and then may mga bumabalik, no, nag-email sa amin. They formerly participated in an event of ours, and then now they would want to organize a workshop for their school, for their organization. So, yun I think yung nakakatuwa talaga na experience for me kapag nakikita mo yung resulta, no? We do have this theory of change. We crafted it, I think, 2019. We have very big vision, no? Vision. Din namin dinraft yung mission vision namin. Malaki yung uh, objective namin na parang through media literacy, we get to make our schools better, our television shows better, our films better, our democracy, it becomes more participatory. So malaki yung mga ends na gusto namin makita. But of course, it's not something that can be easily measured. So it's through these small interactions with our participants that we somehow get affirmation na okay, may sense naman 'tong ginagawa natin so we can keep on going, 'no?
Baka Sarah
Oh,
wants to add, yeah.
yes. I think the most exciting, apart from meeting other people, is to like travel, kahit na local travel lang siya. Because meron kaming dream to really, school tour nga eh. To reach, Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao. Hindi pa kami nakakapag Mindanao. Um, but hopefully, yon after the pandemic, magawa namin yan. Also, I was thinking about yung um, I think going back pa rin talaga sa roots ng UP eh, no? When there are problems na yung societal problems and challenges when it comes to education, ganyan, and to media literacy. Um, as a student activist back then, ano talaga eh, parang may drive ka to do something about it. So every time na may bagong fake news, disinformation, yung mga binanggit ni Marlon, um, backsliding ng democracy, mas lalo kang nagkakaroon ng energy to think about how you can contribute and how your organization can contribute. Yun.
Yeah. Sobrang ano no. When I was actually like nung bago pa kami sa MIL, of course, I'm already hearing a lot about the work that OOTB has been doing. And recently, of course, we've actually worked with Marlon for like I probably guested in a lot of webinars already together with Marlon. So and also to Jules. So it's so nice, and I know that you guys are coming from UP, right? And tama yung sabi ni Sarah na the more pushback we're getting from the current situation that we're having, which is obviously it's been so much challenging, right? Like we just have a lot of challenges for targeting media practitioners like you guys or us in general, and journalists as well. This is like a perfect instance for us to ask you guys, especially, what advice would you give to youth leaders, especially those who are also working in the media field, in terms of still holding it all together and continually fighting despite the challenges that we've been posed to journalists and media practitioners these days? Let's start with Marlon, maybe.
Hmm, parang nagawa na kasi ng Maria Ressa kahapon, eh.
Yeah,
Enough na yung
yeah,
pep talk niya sa kanyang, Nobel Peace Prize, lecture. I was crying inside while listening to her lecture. Siguro una ko yung naisip kasi nga parang yung key takeaway ko from her lecture was that it's actually a complicated situation that we're in. No, it's not only political forces that we have to deal with; it's also the tech forces, no, the tech companies that we also have to um, deal with, and I think that is also the source of energy and motivation for me personally. that, of course, OOTB can solve these things, as an organization, but we recognize that it's a complicated situation, and us still being in the conversation is gives us a good feeling that there are other people who are also invested in these issues, no, who we are with, no, holding the line, ika nga, sabi ni Maria Ressa. And ayun muna. Sarah.
Sa akin, meron akong dalawang parang motto ba or mantra, ganyan. Narinig ko sa dalawang older activists. One is, when things get tough, ang tanong niya lagi ay, it's not about kung kaya pa ba, so, pero it is about kung kailangan ba. So when things are, yun nga, getting tougher, lagi ko lang tinatanong sa sarili ko kung kailangan ba to? Kailangan ba tong gawin? Over kaya ko pa ba? Kasi definitely nababurnout tayo eh. But kapag nare-realize mong kailangan tong mangyari eh, you'll really make it happen. Ganyan. Tapos yung second advice ay, as usual, yung lagi naman nating naririnig, there's no way but up. Diba? Parang laging, ang exact words ay, lagi lang tayong pasulong. Ganyan. So, sa panahon na to, when you're burnt out, it's okay to rest, no? But then you move forward. Lagi lang tayong pasulong. And we do that collectively. Kaya nga sabi ni Marlon, it's not just out of the box. And even kaming dalawa, it's not just him, it's not just me. At may isa pa kaming co-founder and other, volunteers. Ganyan. So,
Yes.
Actually, gusto kong dugtungan sana, no? Pagka kasi nabe-burnout ka, sometimes it leads to frustration, and sometimes it leads to just giving up, no? Of course, I'm not taking anything away from people who have really decided to, take a break. Okay lang din naman yun, no? I'm not taking anything against them. But if you commit to something in the long run, you know that solving the disinformation problem is not going to uh, be done overnight, no? Hindi siya magagawa ng isang project lang, o hindi siya magagawa ng isang org lang. So, ganun, i-recognize mo na may ibang tao na gagawa nun sa'yo kung ikaw ay nagpapahinga.
Yes, sobrang inspiring naman ng mga messages ng ating mga guests, di ba? And since they've already been talking about resting and also burnout, kasi nga even our media practitioners could also get burnout or experience burnout. It's a perfect segue to talk about the Unified Series theme, which is restoration. And of course, restoration is about how do we actually go back to our roots, right? Like what's the biggest why are we doing these kind of things? Now, we want to know, coming from the perspective of our media practitioner guests, no, especially on the idea of digital detox, because as we all know, we're facing a global health crisis right now, the COVID-19 pandemic, and people are spending a lot of time online and in social media. So we want to know more about you guys specifically. How do you do digital detox? Like, how do you detach from your work as media practitioners? What do you do in particular? Maybe some habits that some of our guests, our audiences, I mean, could actually adopt. Let's start with Sarah, maybe.
Um, well, for one, natatawa si Marlon. For one, I do meditation. But it's not hindi siya parang detoxifying talaga for me. It's a part of, it's a routine. It's a way of life kind of. So you don't meditate just because there's a pandemic or may problema ka. You try to develop a routine, like every day or as much as you can, di ba? To center yourself and to focus on whatever it is you need to do or not to do. Kumbaga parang um, yun nga, parang pagkain. When you exercise, you also do meditation. Parang ganyan. But also, it's for me sa buong 2020, it's all right not just to take a break, but also just to do nothing. Kapag ka parang feel mo, gusto mo lang humiga, tumingin sa kawalan, ganyan. If it's your way to center yourself, then go, 'di ba? If you need to read stuff na hindi naman connected halimbawa sa school or sa work, then go and explore. And there's also one thing na um, what's this parang kasi meron kaming mga mental health sessions sa office ko. We do this to also keep ourselves grounded. So may mga advice doon na bukod sa yun nga, okay lang na wala kang gawin for a day. But to explore kung ano pa yung mga hindi mo nagagawa. Yeah, try something new. And also to embrace the change. Instead of fighting itong pandemic things, halimbawa, nagki-K-drama lang ako sa gabi. And instead of thinking na, hala, nagbe-binge watch na ako, I just embrace it and say, this is how it is. And that's what makes me focused and happy, right? Yun.
Yes. Actually, I've joined some of the meditation sessions that Sarah did way like years back, and so it's really very relaxing. And me personally, then just to share, when because I really detached from social media and online work, especially when I'm traveling. So I just came from Siargao, and I was talking to Marlon actually like months back. I told him that I'm planning to move to Siargao the next few months. So really for me, kanya-kanya siyang strategy, right? Like how we do digital detox. But before we let go of the topic, no, let's ask Marlon naman. Kasi I know Marlon has a different way of detoxing. So Marlon, what's your
Oo.
strategy?
Pero gusto kong disclaimer, I think Sarah is really better at it. So, uh, hindi ko alam kung may ascendancy ako to talk about it. Pero I think what is different from Sarah's experience is I try my best to not reach a point where I need to detoxify. Uh, how I do that is I really make sure that I don't spend too much time on my devices. Kasi nangangailangan tayo mag-detoxify kapag talagang parang babad na tayo. So ako, I actually um, follow some of the tips of this guy named Tristan Harris. He's the guy doon sa Social Dilemma, yung Netflix documentary. So he does a lot of these things, no, advocating for digital detox and um, demanding accountability from tech platforms. So one of this very helpful tip is for people to turn off notifications sa phones, no? Ang i-keep mo lang na notifications ay sa mga messaging apps mo, but all the rest, turn off mo yung notifications so you're not bothered. Because all of these apps will tell you, uy, nandito pa ako sa phone mo, laruin mo naman ako, or bili ka naman ng ano, may promo ko ngayon, and so on and so forth. So I make sure to turn off all of these so that I don't get tempted. I actually deleted my Facebook uh, sa phone lang, no? So I still go on Facebook sa desktop ko, but I tried to remove it from my phone so that I have less time kasi I'm most of the time nasa phone din naman ako. So sometimes I want to look into Facebook, so I'll get forced to still open my desktop. So merong extra parang barrier for me to do that. Yun yung mga techniques ko.
I like that strategy, Marlon. Parang I also want to do that. Like you have parang a separate outlet to do like for Facebook or these things to open your laptop because at the end parang ay ang hirap wag na lang, 'di ba? Parang you have
Yeah.
you have a nice excuse not to do it just because there's an additional work to do instead of the phone na very ano lang dispensable na, oh, okay, it's here, it's ever, even like iWatch, you can check anytime too. So parang ang dami ng like technology is spoon feeding us to like, hey, look at me, use me, parang ganon. And I'd like to pick up what Sarah said to close this part na um, I would like to acknowledge in saying na I also do that, like coming here to the States. It's a very new environment. Now I'm used to in the Philippines. Like we used to hustle a lot, do a lot, because if we're not doing anything, parang you judge yourself na, "Oh, I think ano napakatamad ko ngayon," or I'm not worthy na wala akong ginagawa. So I'm not sure if it's just me, but tell me that it's not just me. I had that mentality way back in the Philippines, and coming here I see people na parang, well, that's why they work hard, they play hard, but they know when to put that boundary at some point. Like they also, it's a different culture from the East Coast and the West Coast, but I've observed that for people here too. And I believe that's also something I should try to adapt. No, na it's okay to take a break. Parang no one will judge you. Like binge watch if you want to, and leave that thing. Like it's not good to multitask at some point. Like give a focus, because that's where you'll also feel relaxed. Now you're doing one thing at a time, and that's the way how you also take care of yourself. So I'm really happy that I resonate to what Sarah said, and I'm learning from Marlon. Maybe that will apply to me as well. So try ko nga, especially with the holiday season na parang
True.
everyone's just on Facebook, on Instagram, and baka ma-FOMO na naman ako. So I'll just probably do that. Gab?
Yes, actually, I also remember that time when I was in Siargao, because that's the most recent trip I had. I was actually bringing a book in Siargao. No, it was actually with the thought that I always have to do something in like on top of one of another task, like that kind of pressure na parang I have to always be busy. And so I don't just want to lie down on the beach like just observing the waves. I want to be able to read, because that's like 1 to 2 hours of wasted time. And then when I went back after a month of living in Siargao, I realized that I never really opened a page in that really very heavy book. And I just embraced it. Sometimes I just don't really want to do it, like any kind of thing that will stress me out. And that also humbled me down that I'm not a superhuman. Like I'm just a casual person who also needs the rest to detoxify from the stress that media and digital world is actually bringing us, which by the way is a perfect wrap up for the segment and the kind of discussion that we have for detoxification. I want to ask you guys really before we close things, no, what are you guys up to right now? What have you been doing? What have you been busy with? I know that it's not a time for you guys to detox prior to Christmas, no, but I want to ask, what are your current engagements? Are you still busy with OOTB? What are the next projects lined up for the organization and even outside the organization? Let's start with maybe Marlon.
Hmm. One of the ongoing projects that we have right now is actually a partnership with Mano Amiga Philippines and Facebook. So we have this project called Youth Leaders Incubator. It's a mentoring program where we um, incubate incubate 10 youth organizations who are doing their advocacy campaigns. No? So it's a, I think, hindi ako sure there's a numbers, 4 or 5 months implementation of their projects in the lead up to the elections. Because we know very well that the youth agenda should be something that is amplified um, once we near May 2022. So that's one of the things that we are busy with. Aside from that, we also have this Greater Internet Freedom campaign. Maybe Sarah can talk about that.
Yes. So this Greater Internet Freedom campaign is a partnership with Engage Media and Internews. So ang projects namin dyan ay mas on digital literacy. cyber safety, ganyan. So we just did the training. Now we launched a campaign on online free speech. Um, and in a way also online and in a way also investigating yung press freedom issues sa Philippines. And then we're also going to launch an open call for the next project or next activity under the GIF or Greater Internet Freedom Campaign. The open call is for a focus group discussion on online gender-based violence. So we're going to launch that Marlon Monday, no? It's for women and LGBTQ plus that two sectors, no? Um, Yon. And then we're also going to launch another campaign related to online GBV or gender-based violence.
Bukod dito sa dalawa, as we did in 2016 and 2019, no, we have this Suri at Pili campaign. It's a intersection between voters education, voters literacy, and media literacy. So part of the campaign that we do is training on how to analyze political ads, for example. So that's one of the things that we will be doing. We're actually doing a podcast, I think January or February for that. Ayun. Yan yung mga pinagkakaabalahan namin. Bukod pa sa iwas fake and yung MIL for
Yes.
democracy, which is an ongoing thing.
Mm-mm.
Right. That's a lot lined up for you guys.
Actually.
Well, I'm silently cheering. I'm your cheerleader from afar, and I'll be looking forward to your activities online. And so now that we're here, and for everyone watching or will be tuning into our podcast, all those activities line up. And now that we're about to close, I'd like to ask you, what is your parting message to the youth? Like, since we're focusing on, as a YSEALI unified series, any words of wisdom? No, something that they could pag tawag dito ng mga Tagalog, well, something that they could hold on to, no, for anyone listening, because I believe just by looking at the status quo right now, a lot of the young ones are into the path of being media practitioners as well. So you don't know, someone out there is looking, looking up, but looking up for you, and waiting for this to happen and hear from you. So maybe we could start with Sarah and then followed by Marlon.
Siguro ano na lang, from a development actor perspective, because I also work for another NGO. There are too many problems or challenges in the world. But as a development actor, if you wish to go that road, no, if you wish to have a startup or an advocacy organization, um, uh, remember that you're not alone, and you just can't solve the problems of the world alone. So you don't need to feel, of course it's okay to feel depressed or frustrated, it's okay to feel despair, but para hindi ka dumating sa ganong point, no, it's just remember that you can tap so many other people, so many other like-minded people. Because yung change, it doesn't, it doesn't just, um, it won't happen without collective action, basically. And also, what Ayana mentioned in the first part, yung conflict, yung contradiction, change won't happen without contradiction or without conflict. And obviously, in a problematic situation, hindi lang naman ikaw, dalawa, o onting tao lang ang makakasolve. So, I know the youth has, parang yung grabe yung energy ng kabataan. So, use that energy, but also um, uh, try not to parang, ano ba, maubos. Huwag maubos yung energy na yun. Kasi marami pang dekada para mapagtagumpayan yung mga hinahanap nating changes. Ganyan.
Oo. Ako sa akin naman, about YSEALI, apply kayo. No? Apply kayo. I actually have friends, no, who message me every time merong round of applications for the YSEALI Seeds, asking about if it's something that they should try, and then asking for tips as well on applying for the YSEALI grant. I highly encourage them, no, and of course everyone to apply, kasi like for example with our experience, our YCD Seeds was already 6 years ago, and we're still here and we were able to connect to really wonderful people along the way. I think our YCD Seeds grant also paved the way for us to be able to continuously be supported by the US Embassy, for example, with our Iwas Fake project. So malaking tulong 'yon, no, sa pagpapa-scale ng mga projects. And I think itong whole experience of doing advocacy work, advocacy youth startups, I'd like to think that it's a unique experience for us, the younger millennials and the Gen Zs, no? Na unique siya from yung previous generation, and that there's really a lot of players involved, and it's just a matter of yun nga, sustaining the energy, sabi ni Sarah. Huwag mauubusan ng energy, and if ever maubos man, masagad, there's always an opportunity to bounce back, and nandiyan hindi naman nawawala yung mga tao. So hopefully we connect with each other at makapag continuously collaborate pa tayo.
Right. Thank you so much. That's so much wisdom, like no, coming from just two people. And I like that you both of you were able to put that out na you could start anytime, but also know that you're not alone. Because out there, when you go through this path of focusing on media literacy, there's an entire ecosystem about it. There's an entire like community in the Philippines and outside the Philippines out there. And it change does not happen overnight. That's very true. So but your participation, your that one small act can contribute to, to a larger cause. So thank you so much for all of those. Thank you for this time. That brings us to the end of this episode. Again, thanks to Sarah and Marlon for joining us during for this informative discussion and sharing your story as well. We hope we have inspired you through the works of these talented people. As always, thanks again for listening to the G&A podcast.
Now, if you enjoy our show, please subscribe to Spotify and Apple Music, and be sure to come back next week for a discussion on sustainability with Limitless Lab Director Joey Cruz and other alums of winning projects on sustainability like Ecomentary, SurePlus, Grow ASEAN, and TuneMap. Until then, this is Gab and Ayana.
Don't forget, it's the G&A podcast bringing you inspiring life stories of the youth today.
Everyone, thank you so much for joining the Media Civics Lab Seminar Workshop.
I know that you're looking forward for another learning session tonight. We're gonna be talking about...
I have a new friend, and at first there were very serious people.
Magandang araw and mabuhay! Chairwood Ayana.